Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of our New South Wales Referees Life Member Series. Today I'm here with a man who's virtually done everything in the game. A man who's refereed 314 first grade games. He's officiated over 700 games in video referee, touch judging and refereeing. It's Steve Clark. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, Lutz, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Keeping busy, but yeah, challenging times, but keeping busy. What are you doing in these difficult times to keep the mind ticking over?
Well, I'm obviously I'm employed at the NRL, so we're on paid leave at the moment. How long that's going to last is anyone's guess. Hopefully it lasts until we all get told we can go back to work and it's business as usual. But how usual the business becomes after this is anyone's guess. I don't know, but I'll just keep on. Look, my kids are on holidays at the moment, so I'm at home with them and a bit of homeschooling before the holidays, and then just doing bits and pieces around the house.
How did you go with the homeschooling?
Some of it I struggled with, to be honest. Some of the way I used to do the mathematics is a little bit different to the way they do it these days, and I don't want to lead my kids up the garden path, giving them the wrong way to do it. So that's a bit of a challenge, but we're getting there, though. We're getting there.
You know, they've got calculators these days.
Yes, I do know they've got calculators, and I do note that most kids these days use them. We used to use abacus.
All right, you're currently working at the NRL, as you said, but you've done so in many different roles since your retirement. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the positions you've filled?
Yeah, sure. So I retired the end of the 2007 season. I was fortunate that I was offered a position to be on Robert Finch's, who was the head coach at the time, his coaching staff. So I took that role up. There was a bit of an administration side of the role, plus some coaching, assessing referees. I was doing video refereeing as well back then. Then I moved from there more into the development space, which and I remember Mick Stone saying to me, he said, I will get far greater satisfaction working in the development space and coaching space than I would from actually refereeing. And it's probably proved to be very, very true, those words from Stoney, and because you just get to see what the youngsters do that you get to work with. So I've been in referee development and education, and I'm still in that role now. I'm working on a lot of special projects at the moment with the NRL, which is good in the women's space, and we've got a program called Battle First to Footy Fields, which I manage, where we get ex-Defence Force personnel into refereeing. So keeps me busy, and I got asked to go back to the bunker last year. Which after a couple of weeks, I wasn't sure that was the smartest move I ever made, but I'm back in there now. I'm enjoying it. It's good fun. It comes with its pressures, obviously, but it's good to still be involved at the high end of the game.
So the roles you've had, they've allowed you to travel quite a fair bit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've travelled all over the joint. I seem to spend a lot of time in airport lounges. Get called an airport snob by some friends of mine. But that's part of the job. I always argued with Robert Finch when he was the boss. I argued with Graham Annesley when he was the boss. I've argued with Tony Archer when he was the boss. You can't develop and educate referees sitting behind a desk at either Moore Park or in the bunker building. You've got to be out and about with the troops on the ground, and that's where you got to go. And that means sometimes you've got to fly to these joints. So yeah, I do a bit of travel.
So what was working life like for you before being a referee? Obviously you didn't have the NRL commitments before you became a first grade referee. What was your occupation and what was work like for you?
Yeah, well, I used to work mainly state government employment in transport, rail and bus and ferry, and I studied at Sydney Uni. I got a master's degree in employment law. Now I'm not a lawyer, but I used to work in the industrial relations, human resources field, and I worked for, as I said, buses, ferries, the railways. I did a bit of part-time work to keep my hand in after I left those organisations. When I became a full-time ref on our days off, I did a bit of work with a trade union just to see what it was like on the other side of the fence. But all the skills that I picked up from those jobs and that study, I think certainly helped me with my refereeing down the track too. Some of the skills cross over.
All right, let's start with your on-field career. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. A young boy. I'm actually here at Story Park today at Asquith, one of the great grounds in our New South Wales competition at the moment. Why did you decide to take up the whistle back in the 80s, and how did this take place?
Yeah, well, I got talked into it basically. To be honest, I didn't want to do it. I got talked into it. I got diagnosed as a diabetic when I was 15 years of age, and I was playing footy at the time, and I just decided I didn't want to play anymore with being a diabetic, because I had to have 4 injections a day back then. And but the doctor said to me I needed to keep fit. That would help me manage my medical condition. So I was looking around, and then I got talked into refereeing. I'd seen what had happened to referees when I was playing, and I wasn't interested in getting involved in that, put myself in that position. But it was probably, as you know, sitting back now, it's easy to be smart after the event. It was probably the best thing that I ever got pushed into, because I soon learnt when I was refereeing as a youngster back in the North Sydney days that refereeing gave me a lot of skills that I didn't have before I started, and it gave me a lot of confidence. It helped me make decisions. I was in a position of authority. I had to learn to respect, not that I didn't respect people, but I had to learn really value respecting others, and earning respect. So all those things refereeing's given me, and that's one of the things that we do in our current, in our roles currently in the education space with young referees, and getting referees into the game to start with. It's all those values, they're life skills in my view, and I think for me, it certainly helped me with aspects of my life. Certainly, I'm nowhere near perfect, never claimed to be, and and I've got plenty of pitfalls. There's no doubt about that, and I used to get them pointed out to me on a regular basis when I was refereeing. But refereeing has taught me a lot. There's no doubt about it.
Now, not all referees that go on to make first grade are actually successful in their district as they're coming through, whether it be the timing or whatnot. You were quite successful. You refereed both the 87 and the 88 A-grade grand finals.
Yep. Yeah, well, back there in North Sydney days, there was a guy that was there for a long time before I got to the, towards the pointy end of that district. And there was a guy by the name of Earl Carroll, and he passed away, had a heart attack when he was running, of all things. And I just worked my way through the grades, and I was, obviously those that were responsible for the appointments there thought I was good enough to do it, and and it was good to get a couple of grand finals there, and I really enjoyed my time there at Norths. Like most referee associations, politics involved in all those joints, and but if you put all that aside and just enjoy the company of those that you're working with, and enjoy what you're doing, and that's getting outdoors and refereeing footy. It was good. I loved it, and I owe them a lot. They taught me a lot of early life lessons, which was good.
There are a few notable names that came through around your time, or were that around North at the time. Martin Ryan, Steve Betts.
Yep. Yeah, Colin Jones was there. He's another graded member. Robert Kittle was another graded member. I think North Sydney claimed Tony Archer because he came across from the eastern suburbs when they folded, but he was there for a while. We've had, and obviously the current crop, you got John Stone. We had
Adam Devsich went through.
Yeah, Devsich went through North Sydney. So we've had a few through there for an association which is relatively small, and a junior league which is small. We've had a pretty good conversion rate, to be honest.
So you're graded member 776. Can you tell us a little bit about the story about coming into grade in 1989 from North Sydney up until the time before you made your first grade debut?
Yeah, so I did the SG Ball final in 1988, and I was wondering whether I would get graded either at the end of that junior rep season or at the beginning of the next season. As it turned out, it was the beginning of the '89 season. I still remember the phone call I got. It was from Dennis Braybrook. He was in charge of the referees at the time. I answered the phone. It wasn't a mobile, obviously, back then. It was just a landline. Picked the landline up, and he just said, Steve, it's Dennis Braybrook. I said, hey, Dennis, how are you? He said, yeah, good. He said, mate, welcome to Heartbreak Hill. And I said, oh, thanks for that. And I wasn't exactly sure what he meant. He clarified, obviously, that I'd been added to the grades, to what was then the New South Wales grade squad, and we used to train at Henson Park. But I soon found out that what he meant by Heartbreak Hill, you know, it was, you know, and like with anyone that gets added to the grade squad, even the current day, you know, crop that's come through the accelerated learning groups and into the grade squad that you're in, when you get there, you think, oh, you beauty, I've made it.
Yep.
But there's still a fair mountain to climb. And just when you think you're going all right, there's always someone there to pull you back and tell you you're not going as well as you think you went or were going. And I remember talking to Dennis about that, and that was what he meant by welcome to Heartbreak Hill. And, you know, it was good that I was able to have that chat with him, because he taught me that, you know, you need to keep working hard. Just when you think you've made it, you've got to work that bit harder. And that's, you know, that was a good lesson that I had, and it helped me in the long run, I think.
So you mentioned Dennis Braybrook. Coming
Yep.
through the grades, who were other influences on your refereeing career?
Yeah, look, there's a couple. I had a really strong relationship with Greg McCallum. Greg was always good to talk to. Billy Harrigan was another one that I went, because he was already pretty well established by the time I got there in '89, obviously, because he refereed the first grade grand final that year. But he was always good to have a chat with, good to compete with. The other guy who, and unfortunately passed away not that many years ago now, was Kevin Roberts. Fantastic referee. It was a guy that I used to watch when I was going to North Sydney Oval with my parents to watch North Sydney Bears play. You know, whenever Kevin Roberts was refereeing, I used to enjoy watching him do his, you know, ply his trade, because he was just a no-nonsense sort of ref. You know, nothing flash, but he just went about his business. He didn't take crap from anyone. He just and did a good job in the main, you know. And he was a guy. He used to, when I was working at State Transit at North Sydney, he was the inspector at North Sydney Police, just up the road. I used to go up and see him at the police station and have a chinwag with him about refereeing all the time, and then sometimes travel with him to training. So he was a pretty heavy influence on my career, Kevin, I've got to say. And I had a lot of time and respect for him when he was on the coaching staff, and when he was a referee himself.
So your first grade debut comes in round 9 of 1992 in a match between Parramatta and Newcastle at Parramatta Stadium. Firstly, what were your memories of the week leading up, being told that you had achieved the appointment, and then the actual game itself?
Yeah, it's quite different to what happens today. So, you know, back then, I got appointed to the game, and they could appoint young up-and-comers like myself at the time to first grade, and you're not on TV, not on radio. There might be some print journalists at the ground, and that's about it. But, you know, I remember having a conversation with Bill Harrigan in the lead up to the game. I said, what are the differences between reserve grade and first grade? And he just said, none apart from speed. He said, it's just quicker.
Yep.
And he was pretty right. He said the thing that you will notice is that they'll have a go at trying to unsettle you. You're only a new bloke. He said, you got to be confident, and you got to be competent in what you do. And you know, don't take any crap from anyone, basically. So, you know, Bilko, Kevin Roberts said much the same thing. And there was a touch judge in first grade. He'd retired by this time, but I used to talk to him a lot too. He was a guy by the name of Vince Smith. And he was my boss at State Transit as well. And he said to me much the same thing as Bill. He said, you just got to be confident in what you do, and competent. Are you going to get them all right? No, you're not. But at least try and convince them with your body language that you're right, and away you go. So when I got the game, Parramatta Newcastle, there was a player that I actually worshipped when I was watching when I was a younger bloke, with Brett Kenny, and he was the captain of Parramatta this day. And here's me thinking, here's this young bloke from North Sydney, who not that many years ago didn't even want to referee, and now I'm about to referee first grade game, and I'm refereeing Brett Kenny, and I thought, this is going to be some opportunity. So I grabbed it with both hands. With all the advice I'd been given, I made sure I went out and did that. And everything I was told that was going to happen was right. They were going to try me out. They were going to test me out, and it was quicker. But you know what? The footy was still the footy, and that was the attitude. I tried to keep it simple. I was always a rules-based referee. I knew what the rules were, and then it was just a matter of massaging and knowing when to apply, when to make decisions and when not to, and when to, and that was keep it simple, stupid, the old KISS principle. And refereeing, it's hard enough, but we shouldn't make it harder than what it is.
Yeah. I think that might have even been Brett Kenny's last year, if not his second last year for Parramatta.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was his last year. So I was fortunate. I got the opportunity to referee before he finished up.
So throughout your first grade career, there's been many different rule changes and interpretations.
Yep.
How did you handle these constant changes to how the game was refed?
Well, there's a question. I've always been of the view that in my case, I'm the referee. The coach is the coach. The league is the league. They make the decisions of what we're supposed to be doing. The coach is the one that's supposed to coach us to do it, and I've just got to go out there and do as I'm told, basically. So that's what I did. There were some rule changes I didn't agree with, but that wasn't my place to arc up about that. My place was just to go out and do what I had to do. I developed a reputation over the years, and I think you said earlier, no nonsense sort of referee. And, whenever there happened to be a crackdown on some aspect of the game, it was a Friday night game, let's trot Steve Clark out, he'll fix it up. Which was fine. It was, that was my reputation. That's what I did. But there was a fair bit of baggage that come with that. And, we had clamped down on roll balls, we had clamped down on descent and all sorts of things. And, you talk to anyone about the roll ball clamp down, they all remember the Parramatta Penrith game at Penrith Park on a Friday night. Everybody talks about it. Everyone remembers it, how the referees went out there and stuffed the whole game up. But we were under instructions. I remember after the game, the CEO, like the name of David Moffat, he was the CEO of the league. He came into the change room after the game, and Peter Louis was the referee's coach. Peter Filmer was the video ref. They all come in, and David Moffat said, "Well done, good job." And we copped the absolute hammering on the TV coverage. And I said to him, if there's not another referee that doesn't do this the rest of this weekend, I'm going to personally go out there and deal with them. And he said, no, they will. I think there was only two more penalties that whole weekend. But anyway, that's another story for another day.
I'm glad you brought that up. I remember you telling me the story about sending Clarkie out on a Friday night. I've got a question I was going to ask you later about your refereeing, and there's parallels to Kevin Roberts. Throughout your career, you were noted for being a firm but fair referee with a good level of control. How did you establish this in games? But then also, why do you think they sent you out on Friday nights? Was that because of some of the traits that you have?
I think I mentioned it earlier. My skill set from what I used to do before I went into refereeing, I think helps me with that. We used to do a lot of negotiations with trade unions, and there were some hard heads in and amongst those guys, people on the waterfront down at the ferries, and those guys. And I learned a lot from that. So, as I said, and I also said that my job was just to do as I was told. So, don't shoot the messenger. Although we all know that the messenger, being the referee, often gets shot first. The coach is sitting in the ivory tower somewhere, out of the way. But my personality traits and my attitude to what my role was meant that I've just got to do as I'm told. If I want to get a game next week, I've got to go out and do as I'm told and do the best job I can. So I wasn't about to go and say, if the coach said we're going to clamp down on roll balls, I wasn't going to turn around and say, you're kidding yourself, aren't you? I'm not doing that. Because, he would have said, well, we'll go and shake hands. Robert Finch used to say, if you don't want to do what we're doing here, you can go and shake hands with Dennis Spagarino in reserve grade. He's coaching the reserve grade squad. And now I love Spags to death, but I didn't want to go and shake his hand down there if I was going to be refereeing down there. So I just went out there and did what I had to do. And I wasn't afraid to do what I had to do. They say that, as a referee, you've got to have an ego. And you do, to a point. You don't have to have an ego that's out of control, but you got to have the ability to back yourself, and you got to have the ability to just referee what's in front of you, make the decisions you need to make based on the rules, the laws of the game, and based on the instructions that you got from the coach at the time or the game. And that was my very simple philosophy. Go out and do it. Maybe I was a little bit naive in thinking that you're always going to get backed if you go and do all this stuff. But I've got to say, in the majority of cases, I was, and you just got to, go about doing those things. And I always say to young referees, you've got to develop a reputation for yourself. Obviously, a good one, or one that you can use to your benefit. And and I know when we used to sit in that NRL referee's office, they always used to talk about the really tough games that were on every week. There's a bun fight this week. There's a bun fight. Oh, Clark, you'll get that. Clark, you'll get that. There was always a bun fight every week. And I was guaranteed a game every week if that was the mindset of the others. There's a bun fight. Oh, Clark, you'll get that. You beauty. Go again. No problems. And I was happy to do that. It can wear you down if you let it wear you down. But I just backed myself, and trying to lock yourself out of all the stuff that goes around that can be difficult at times. There's no doubt about that. But we often talk to youngsters these days about mental toughness, and all this stuff taught me a lot about being mentally tough on the footy field, and that was always something that I thought I carried pretty well.
You talk about don't shoot the messenger and misconceptions about people. This is something I've never told you, and I think I've always wanted to tell you. I remember being a kid growing up. Going to the footy with my nan, God bless her, she's not here with us anymore. Most lovely lady you could meet. Steve Clark was always one of the two bunnies that we used to say, oh no, we've got Steve Clark on the weekend. Oh no, here we go. And that's actually something, after becoming a referee, I'm quite embarrassed about. And having met you and getting to know you and learning from you, there's very few who I respect more in the game than Steve Clark. So I think that just goes to show you that the attitudes of people outside of the refereeing fraternity can change based on what actually goes on.
Yeah, look, you and your nan in particular wasn't on her own with that view, let me tell you. I think if you went down to Crogger Oval, there'd be quite a number of people there who would share that view. But that comes with someone who's not gonna take any nonsense.
Yep.
Who just goes about. But my view was always, if you do the right thing, I'm going to leave you alone.
Yep.
I remember Robert Finch said to me once, he when I was probably about 2004, I think. Tigers were playing Cronulla on a Sunday afternoon game at Leichhardt Oval. I think it was last versus second last. The Tigers were coached by Terry Lamb, and they had Hopewade, Terry Hill, Ed Al in that side, and then there was the Cronulla team was coached by Chris Anderson, and they had a number of players that were very difficult to deal with. And I'd been refereeing reasonably regularly on Friday nights and the Sunday Channel 9 game, and then I got this 2 o'clock death seat game on a Sunday arvo. And Finchy called me in to tell me, and he said, mate, but you're there for a reason. He said, we've got to clean them up.
Yeah.
He said, you need to clean them up. He said, in fact, I had Terry Lamb ring me and say, what are we going to do? Steve Clark's refereeing us. And I said, well, what did you say to him? Finchy said, I just said to him, do what he tells you, otherwise he'll kill you. And I said, oh, thanks very much. Now I'm an assassin. And he said, no, because you just got that reputation. They're not going to muck around. And he said, and if they do, they know that you'll deal with them. And that was probably a good thing from my point of view. It doesn't always work, to be honest, but in the majority of cases it does.
So you throughout your first grade career, you actually participated in a number of firsts. In 1995, you travelled to Perth to referee the Western Reds' first game in the competition at the Wacker.
Yep.
You also did the Hunter Mariners' first game in 1997 at Topper Stadium and the Northern Eagles in 2000 at North Power Stadium. How did you find that experience heading over to Perth?
Yeah, Perth was good back in, way back in 1995. And I was looking at the vision on the screen. It's, there was a good day. I had Marty Weeks.
TV Weeks.
TV Weeks on the line. I remember Weeksy. I remember before we went out that day, Weeksy was putting sun cream on his head because it was about 38 degrees. And one of the young players from one of the early games saw Weeksy putting stuff on his head and thought he was shaving. And Weeksy said, no, it's sun cream, mate. He said, I'm going to pull it, have a look at it. And out goes Weeksy. But Weeksy was really good. It was a good experience refereeing in the middle. I think that was the biggest league crowd they had in WA at the time, around that time. Any game, obviously the Reds' first game was always going to help that. But I remember it being a hot day. The Western Reds got up and won. Yep. I think they were the only new franchise that won that year from memory. Might be wrong there, but they did really well. Great support. They're very parochial over there in Perth, and they were a hard side to referee. But I remember Weeksy, because the touch judges used to have microphones in the flags, and we just had an earpiece on. We couldn't talk to them, but I could hear Weeksy often put the flag to his mouth, up to his mouth and start talking. And I remember him saying, Mark Coyne was the captain of St George that day, and he was very chatty, always very chatty. And I heard Weeksy, with a couple of swear words, which I won't repeat here, asked Mark Coyne, have you got a headache? And I thought, what the hell is he talking about? And then I hear Weeksy say, well, you're effing giving me one. and I asked Weeksy at half time, what are you talking about? He said, he just never shut up. He said, I just had to shut him to keep him quiet. And it worked. But that was a bit of old school stuff, and it was good and a bit of fun. And, you probably get shot at dawn for doing that these days. But, back then it was a bit of fun, and but it had the desired effect, and got Mark Coyne to be quiet. But that whole episode of refereeing that game over there, the first one, was really good. And in fact, I refereed their very last game there too. The Reds refereed their first game and their last game in Perth.
So another first that came in your career, this is quite a special one. You refereed the first game at the old Stadium Australia, well, the Olympic Stadium at that time, Manly versus Newcastle. Can you tell us a bit about that experience?
Yeah, look, that was brilliant. It was there was a double header that day. There was that game, and
Paris and George.
Billy had Paris and George just after it. There was 110,000 people there that day, and it was just something that I never ever thought possible in this country. But then when rugby league was the first sport to use that stadium in '99, leading up to the Olympics in 2000. And to think that I got the opportunity to referee the very first game that day out there.
Very cool.
It was pretty unique and special. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It was one of my highlights, and I was fortunate to referee the first State of Origin there later that year.
So let's move on to 1999 final series.
Yep.
So you refereed the 99 prelim between the Sharks and the Dragons. Throughout your career, you also refereed prelims in 98, Canterbury and Newcastle, 05, Parramatta and the Cowboys, and then 06, Melbourne and St George. What was it about 1999 that probably made you think that this was your year? It was set up for Steve Clark here to get the grand final.
Yeah, well, it's the whole year started off, and as you just pointed out, the very first game at that stadium, and then I was just at the point in my career where I was starting to get some real confidence about what I was doing and how I was going, and and I was probably as fit as I've ever been. And I thought, and I got as I said, I got the first state of origin at that venue, which was my first state of origin mid-year, and then into the final series. And I was just feeling really confident about what I was doing, and and I thought I was a real chance of doing that grand final that year. And I actually got appointed to it, but then didn't do it, which is a whole story in itself, But which was, I don't know if you want me to talk about that, and I'm more than happy to. But it was, I refereed particularly well in the grand final qualifying game at St George and Cronulla. We had I'd been in receipt of a death threat in the lead up to that game, it was a great game of footy, and despite all the pressure that was on about death threats and all that sort of stuff, I just went out there and did the job, and I thought I did a really good job. And then I remember we got told it was either Billy Harrigan or myself were going to get it, and Billy and I were told, look, stay home on the Tuesday morning. You'll get a phone call. If you get a phone call, you've got to come in for a press conference, put your suit and tie on basically, and then you come. So we're both all sitting, I'm sitting at my joint, Billy's sitting at his joint, and then I actually got a phone call, but it wasn't telling me that I got the game. It was telling me what had actually happened, and where the appointment had actually been made on the Monday night, and I was the recommended referee out of the three-man panel, and they took it to the CEO for his sign-off, and he didn't want to sign off on it. He wanted to think about it overnight, and he changed it. He changed it the next overnight, and the Tuesday morning it was changed to Billy was the ref and I was the standby. So, that'll go. I'll probably go down in history as one of the only refs that get appointed to a grand final and don't actually referee it. But it was, look, it was a big game that day, and whilst I wasn't out there refereeing it, Billy did a good job. There's no doubt about that. He's to be congratulated for what he did, because and I remember having a conversation with Billy about this, and he was as much a victim of that whole circumstance as I was, because when he first got told he was given the game, he wasn't told what the circumstances were, whereas I was told. So, but then Billy later found out. He overheard a phone conversation I was having with my brother actually in our office, and then Billy wasn't at all that happy that when he found out what the circumstances were, which I can't blame him. And that's, anyway, you can't undo that. But the one thing that to be honest with you, probably never got over it. But having said that, it's I learnt, if people thought I was mentally tough before then, I was even more mentally tough after that, because I was out refereeing the next year and stayed in first grade again from, till 2007. So I hung around for a bit.
Yeah, definitely a bitter pill to swallow. But like you said, you came back even stronger, and you had many more achievements throughout your career, one of which is State of Origin. Let's talk about State of Origin now. So as you mentioned before, 1999, your first State of Origin game. It's game 2. It's noted for a couple of different things. It's Laurie Daly's last game, I believe. The quickest try in Origin history, 45 seconds
Correct.
to Robbie Ross. And
Correct.
What is still the highest attendance for a game in New South Wales. We had the game at the MCG, which had a big crowd, but in New South Wales, the highest attendance. Can you talk to us about the Origin experience, how it compared to week in, week out footy, and also the games in 2005 and 2006 that you came back for?
Yeah, so, when I was fortunate, I got picked to be a standby referee in State of Origin the year before I actually refereed it. So in 98, I went up to Queensland and was standby for Bill at the Old Lang Park. And we'd all heard this stuff, mate against mate, and all the marketing speak about State of Origin, and you never really know whether that is just marketing talk or it's, these guys really hate each other. And when I actually went up there in 98, there was a really good preparation for me if I was to be able to referee a game later on in my career. And I learned how intense it was. It's one thing to sit there as a spectator watching, but it's another thing to be actually on the sideline watching it and be almost part of it. So that was a great lead in for me. And then when I did that, I got that game in '99. It was my first game. Game 2, as you said, at Stadium Australia. And it was 88,000, pouring rain. I had Phil Cooley and Cole White on the lines, and we got through that game, pretty well in the end. And it was just such a great experience, and it's something I'll never forget. Actually getting out. When I got out there, I thought it was a bit like when I was earlier in the year when I was there for the very first game. This young referee from North Sydney, but refereeing the very first game on any event on that stadium, and then getting out there and being that same referee refereeing the first State of Origin on this stadium, refereeing State of Origin and at that stadium, was just it was a really special moment. And some really good players. I was fortunate enough to referee a lot of good players in my career, but you get, obviously, in theory, in State of Origin, you got the 34 best players in the game playing, and it's just a great opportunity, and I really rate that highly in my career tick offs, and then I got a bit of a funny side of all that. I remember Billy Harrigan. We all know Billy's a competitive bugger, and he said to me when I got that game, because he did game 1. So I got appointed to game 2, and he came up to me through gritted teeth and congratulated me, and which I gleefully accepted his congratulations. And then he said to me, by the way, you do know that if New South Wales win game 2 and it's one game more than the third one's a decider, they have told me that they're going to bring me back. I said, oh, that's good. I said, well, let's just see how the cards fall, Billy. Anyway, New South Wales won the game, so it was a decider. And I ended up getting game 3,
which was the first ever draw.
Which was the 10-all draw up at, and that was the Old Lang Park, and it was good. Billy was the standby referee up there for that, and it rained again that night, but and that was it was a good opportunity to referee on the Old Lang Park. It was something I always wanted to do, and so I was grateful for the fact that I got to do that. And, again, great players. First draw, I think that was the first draw in Origin history at 10-all. And Queensland ended up retaining the trophy because they were they'd won the previous year. But that was another great opportunity for myself. And it's good to travel to those games. So the one in Sydney obviously didn't have to travel too far, but getting on a plane, going up in a hotel overnight, footy, and so all that preparation and all that, that experience is really, really valuable. And then I had it was a while in between drinks. My next one wasn't until 2005, which I got appointed to game 2. Again, it was at Telstra Stadium, I think it was called then, at Homebush. And that was Andrew Johns' comeback game. And after he'd had his broken jaw and he'd only played half a dozen games in about 2 years, I think, and he brained them that night. New South Wales won that game. They played really well. And then 2006, I refereed games 2 and 3. I never refereed a game 1 in State of Origin at all. So I refereed games 2 and 3 in 2006. And a side story to that, I'm pretty good mates with Sean Hampstead, so he won't mind me saying this, but I actually got appointed to game 1 by Robert Finch, or recommended by Robert Finch for the appointment for game 1 in 2006. And Mel Meninga was the coach of Queensland, and he was not one of my greatest fans, Mel. And they got it changed. So they put Sean was the standby and I was the ref on recommendation from Finchy, and then they changed it. And I remember Finchy saying to me, because we went out and we trained that week, and when the appointments come out, and we were playing golf of an afternoon, which we tended to do, and whenever we got an opportunity. And Finchy said to me, he said, mate, I'm filthy on the fact that they changed the appointment. He said, but I'll tell you what, there's a mid-year test in England. He said, if you keep your form up, I'll send you over for it, between New Zealand and Great Britain. I said, yeah, no worries. So I kept my form up. I got appointed to that test. But before I went to that test, I got appointed to Game 2 of State of Origin. So I had Game 2 State of Origin at Sydney. In Brisbane. That was at Suncorp Stadium. And then I went back home and then flew to England, refereed a Super League game as a warm-up in France. Then I refereed the test match at St Helens. And whilst I was over there, I got appointed to Game 3 for State of Origin, which was in Melbourne. So I went from Brisbane to Perpignan to St Helens to Melbourne in the space of about 4 weeks, and that was a really good part of my career. I really enjoyed it. Got to see a lot, and got to referee in different countries, and and all good quality players. It was fantastic.
So you touched on it there. Also, aside from State of Origin, numerous rep appointments, City Country in 05. I think you refereed at Lay Oval in Papua New Guinea. That would have been an experience when they played the Lions.
I do remember that.
You did the 1997, one of the Tri-Series games, which we see on the screen here between New South Wales and New Zealand from the Super days. And also,
I remember that too.
Went to England in 2002 for the games between Great Britain and New Zealand. How did you find international footy?
Yeah, international footy was good. My first test that you touched on it there was in Lay in New Guinea, and Wayne Bennett's brother, Bob Bennett, who I get on quite well with, was the coach of PNG, and Great Britain was coached by Phil Larder, I think, from memory, and it was like a 2020 Big Bash game. The score was about 36-34 or something, and it was a real strange game of footy. But the locals loved their footy up there. It was a good experience for me up there. I was up there for a week in Lay leading up to the game. There's not much that happens around that joint. You just got to stay out of the way. And then I had a test in New Zealand later that year. And then you mentioned the test series in 2002 in Great Britain. I went over there for a full test series between New Zealand and Great Britain. I was over there for 6 weeks, and that was a great time. I really enjoyed that. And I had some club footy in between. I got to referee at Wigan. I refereed a test match at Wigan. I got to referee Wigan in a Super League game over there against Castleford. It was really good. And then I went back over there in 2007 in my last year and refereed a World Club Challenge game. I had the test match that I talked about earlier in 2006 over there at St Helens. I've been really fortunate. I've always said, I've never thought or taken for granted that, I have a right to be in this game and a right to do what I've got to do. I've been privileged to do what I've been able to do. And I think because I felt that way, it's enabled me just to really enjoy what I've been doing and make the most of it and be relaxed. And that's helped. People who would have been watching me referee, there'd be some people thinking, oh, he's not that relaxed. He looks like he's a cranky bastard. But, inside I was relaxed. I always felt like I was enjoying what I was doing. But I've always said, and I think I might have said this to you over the years, you don't want to be seen as the smiling assassin. Yeah. Because, you're enjoying what you're doing, but you can't be penalising players, cautioning players, sending players off, sin binning players, and doing it all with a smile on your face, because that's clearly sending the wrong message. Yeah. But I enjoyed everything I enjoyed everything I did. It was great, and that's because I was in a very privileged position. I was privileged to do what I do. I'm privileged to work where I work now.
So in 2007, cold Friday night in Canberra, round 11, Canberra versus the Dragons. You referee your 300th first grade game. Now, you're only at that time, you're only the third referee to do so, after Bill Harrigan and Cole Pearce. Funnily enough, you won the Cole Pearce medal the year before, in 2006.
Yeah, I did.
Parallel there. How did you find that experience? The longevity,
that was
bringing
great.
up 300.
I've always said that when you talk to young referees, you say, what determines your success? And, everyone's got different levels for what their success is. And one of the things I've always said is longevity. Longevity at the top is a tick a box to tick in terms of being successful. And when I achieved 300, I thought, wow, there's only the two guys before me, Cole Pearce and Billy. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty esteemed club I've just joined. And, and I was really proud. I'm probably more proud of that than anything else, to be honest with you. To clock up 300 games in a single referee model, I think's, fairly significant. I really, whilst I say I've enjoyed all of it, obviously you get the odd game every now and then that you're not going to enjoy. We all know that. But I've enjoyed the majority of my time doing that, and to do 300 games as a referee in our game is, it's a pretty significant milestone in my view. And I'm not just saying that because I got it, because there's a lot of other referees that have got it now. And, but when I got it, being the third was a pretty special night for me, I've got to say.
So now we move on to your last game. It's in 2007. Yep. It's a quarter-final in Melbourne. Melbourne, they beat Brisbane by, I think, 40 points, 40 block. Yeah, what were your emotions going through your mind at this time? I presume you knew at season's end that you were going to retire, but with the way the final series was running, you didn't know when your last game would actually be. Yeah, interesting.
I just treated this game like it was my next game, and I was going to get another game the week after. I backed myself. I remember. So I did know I was retiring at the end of that year, because mid-year, I had a conversation with Robert Finch and Mick Stone. So Robert Finch was the head coach, and Stoney was one of his coaches. And Stoney had indicated he was retiring up to Foster, where he now lives. Yep. And that's how my opportunity to be in the role that I ended up being in when I retired came about. I expressed an interest in working there, and they that all happened fairly quickly. And I remember Stoney and Finchy said to me when that happened, they said, "Now look, we're not going to go around broadcasting to everyone that you're retiring at the end of the year, but we don't want you to treat it like it is your last year. We want you to be competitive right to the end and go as hard as you can." Yeah. I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I want to referee the grand final." Yeah. I said. So I didn't know whether that was going to be my last game or not, but I remember after I did that game, when I was doing the review, and I won't mention the person who was doing the review, but they said to me, "Well, look, you refereed pretty well, but, you're not going to be here at the end of the year." And I thought, well, these people are going against their own advice. But and they said, you were coming from behind anyway, and it's hard to go past people when you're refereeing a 40-point game. And I said, "Yeah, look, fair enough, no problems." Anyway, when the appointments come out, I knew then, obviously, that was going to be it. But the most disappointing thing for me about that whole thing is that I refereed that game. It was in Melbourne, so no family. My mother couldn't even go down to watch because no one saw it apart from on TV. So that's the most difficult part of that. But that's professional sport. You could have got hit by a bus out of the ground, and that would have been your last game. But it's just that's the most disappointing thing from my perspective, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that's ever had that happen to them, and I won't be the last. Yeah. It is what it is, and I still remember that game like it was yesterday. It was good fun. I knew it was potentially my last game, depending on how the appointments rolled out the next week. But it was. I remember. One of the funny things in that game, I remember there was a streaker come on the field, and who was of Fijian descent.
You have a history with streakers. You have a history with streakers. Didn't you see one at the airport?
Yes, I did. I'll tell you about that later. So Cameron Smith was about to take a 20-metre restart, and this streaker was coming from the other end of the field, and we could hear the crowd all yelling. No one knew what was going on. Cameron Smith could see this bloke running down the field with not a stitch on, and he said to Petro, 7 receiver, he said, Petro. Petro said, "Yeah, what?" He said, "Look, your dad's coming." It was this naked Fijian running down the park. It was very funny, and that was all. It was all good fun, and that lightened the load on all those games. And Melbourne were winning that game pretty comfortably, and it was a good way to finish. I knew I was going into work at the NRL after I'd finished. So, whilst it was difficult to initially after you retired, knowing that that was your last game, but you soon learn that you just got to get on with it, and there's plenty of other mountains to climb.
Yeah. Well, just after your career ended, you're a man that likes his fashion. You're fairly trendy, maybe not as trendy as Matt Hewitt or as out there. You were instrumental. You were instrumental in the development of the pink jersey for the referees, particularly leading up to the 2008 Rugby League World Cup. Can you tell us a bit about the significance behind this?
Yeah, well, they used those baby pink jerseys in the World Cup, and it was because they didn't no player was going to wear pink, so pink didn't clash with anybody, no clubs, no one, and we got a lot of really good. In fact, those Reebok pink jerseys from the World Cup are collector's items.
Yep.
You know, there's not too many of them around, and everyone wanted to get it. For all the people that are critical of pink jerseys, everyone wanted to get their hands on those. Everyone wanted to get their hands on those. Over the years, they changed the colour of pink in some of the NRL jerseys. Some of them look like they probably should be on the Mardi Gras or something, with the hot pink. I just thought those baby pink jerseys were probably the best ones that they'd ever had. And, it was good. But they, like anything, it had its time, and then they needed to move on to other stuff, which they have done now. But I think at the time it was something that was completely different out of left field. Initially, I remember someone, I can't remember who it was, someone in the league said, it doesn't show authority because they're wearing pink. And I thought to myself at the time when that was said, pink's obviously associated with females.
Yeah,
if anyone wants to tell me that the females haven't got authority, well, they're a braver man than me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it sent and it had a good message behind it with the pink ribbon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Breast cancer. It's just it was a great opportunity to promote the pink ribbon, the breast cancer awareness, and I just thought the whole thing was really good back then. It looked good, as I said, everyone wanted to get their hands on them. I've still got one locked away in my cupboard upstairs somewhere.
So in the past 18 months or so, you mentioned you've gotten back into officiating through the bunker. After your retirement, you went into the video ref box. How has technology changed since that time when you were originally video referee and now with the bunker? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, look, it's chalk and cheese, to be honest. What's happening now in the bunker compared to the video ref days is enormous. I know when I first went in there, I went in there with the mindset, look, this is not going to be that hard. And the decision making is not the hard bit. It was the technology and getting your head around the technology. It's like walking into NASA when you walk into that bunker the first time, and then watching it work and how it works, and then the processes that are around it. It's massive. But thankfully, it took me 12 to 14 weeks to learn it.
Yep.
And then you just when you think you know it, and then you get put into game situation, and then you learn quickly how much you don't know. And I think by the end of, so I started training at the beginning of last season in 2019. By the end of 2019, I was starting to feel comfortable.
Yep.
And then obviously we had a couple of games this year, and then obviously been put on hold for a while now. But I think it's good. It's got its critics, the bunker, but I think it used properly, it can be a really, really good tool for the referees as long as it doesn't get overused.
No, I agree. So you still actively referee from time to time to help out with different comps and carnivals, Koori knockouts, etc. I actually remember, before we talk about League of Legends competition, I remember one game at Cabramatta. I was running your line, police game, and bloke turned around and threw the ball at you, hit you on the back of the head. And then you turned and looked, and you're a bit unsure, and sort of gave you the nod. Yep, he intended to do that, and off he went. He was in the can. He was off.
Well, exactly right. Well, I'd already spoken to that, as you would recall, spoken to that particular individual about his attitude and behaviour on the field, and then he got penalised for something and threw the ball at me. And I said, what part of you need to improve your behaviour. Didn't you understand? Well, now off you go. And I was just hoping that he wasn't a highway patrol bloke and was going to not
Pick you up on the way home.
Yeah, but yeah, look, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like calling a referee a cheat, throwing a ball at a referee, hitting a referee. You just can't do that stuff.
So you're enjoying being part of this Legends of League?
Yeah,
Sean Hempstead, Bill Harrigan.
It's a great opportunity. Get an opportunity to referee with. You see that photo there with Billy and Sean Hempstead, and you know we Billy couldn't do it in at the back end. He had to pull out, and we got Chris James along. He's now a legend because he's retired. We had a good time doing it. We had a good time the year before, and it's good to catch up with those guys. We've been trying to get Tim Mander down to do it, but he's too busy with politics. So, but yeah, look, it's fun, and you get to referee a lot of the older players that we used to referee, and they still take it pretty seriously. They've all got that competitive edge, and they try to knock each other's heads off. There's no doubt about that. It's all fun.
So nowadays, there's another Clark who's taken up the whistle. Young Bailey, your daughter, has started refereeing in Norse.
She has.
Story Park. The parallels are quite funny. You must be proud as punch. How have you found watching from the sidelines? Yeah,
look, it's a real challenge, to be honest with you, because when I've gone to watch her, I've gone to watch her as a parent.
Yep.
But you know, these days around North Sydney, they're not flushed with resources, so there's not always coaches at all the grounds for the refs. And I remember there was early in the piece she's been at a couple of grounds where she was there on her own. So I'm there as a parent, but I also double up as a coach, and then people tend to know who you are. So if she has made an error, which she was likely to do, you know, they want to have a crack at me about it. And I remember one guy one day, he was carrying on, and he was having he said, "Can I talk to you?" "Yeah, sure." He said, "Well, I just want her to." I said, "What's your issue?" He said, "I just want her to be consistent." I said, "Mate, it's under sevens."
Yeah.
I said, "No, they're not playing for sheep stations." I said, she's out there trying to enjoy her footy. The kids are out there playing, enjoying their footy. I said, the only one that's out there is not enjoying themselves is you. You need to, you know, I said, if she goes, who's going to referee it? And he said, well, yeah, that's true, no one. Yeah. It turns out this guy was a copper. He should have known better. Yeah. So from that point of view, it's not easy, but I really enjoy watching her do what she does, and she sets high standards for herself, and she gets quite cranky with herself if she doesn't do as well as what she thinks she should. And she's only in this would have been a second year if it started, but and if it does start eventually. But she loves a footy. She loves a footy, and she can't get enough of it. In fact, the last week in lockdown, she's had me pulling out my old State of Origin games, watching them. She's been watching them, and we've got one to go. We've got to watch game 3 of the 99 series, and then she's watched all 5 of them over the course of the last week. So she loves it, and it is way back, if you didn't have sons, you probably wouldn't have thought you'd had anyone refereeing. But in this day and age, with the women's program, they all get an opportunity to referee, and there's some good female referees we've got in our game. And we should keep pushing them along.
Yeah, that ties in nicely. I was going to say, not only are you a strong supporter of Bailey, but you're also a strong advocate for women officials. Can you tell us a bit about your involvement in some of the programs? Yeah, so we've got the acronym is WILLIP, so it's Women in League Officiating Program, and we put we got a task to put every female referee through the WILLIP program over the course of the next 2 years, and we go around running conferences around the countryside for the girls, and it's great. When the girls get amongst the girls, they speak up a bit more, they get some confidence, and they do a great job. What they add to the game shouldn't be sneezed at. It'll happen one day. I'm not sure when, but it'll happen where there'll be a female referee that referees. We've obviously already had Belinda Sleeman referee in the pocket in NRL, but there'll be a head referee as a female referee in the NRL one day, and then the world's their oyster. And I really think that for the girls, they bring a lot to the table
in the refereeing space, and you know, and I'm glad that I was given the job to manage that program, because it you know, it's something I'm really interested in, obviously, because I've got 4 daughters, but you know, and I've got I know a lot of the female referees around in the system, and you know, they all do a really good job, and they're very keen and highly motivated, and I think you know, I don't think it'll be too far down the track we see a female who's a head referee in the NRL.
So we discussed your absolutely long list of on-field achievements. How does this achievement we've got up here on screen, in 2014, you became a life member of the New South Wales Referees Association. Can you tell us a bit about what this recognition meant to you?
Yeah, so it's something, you know, and I said on the night in the speech, it's not something you ever aim for, but to be recognised by the membership of the Referees Association, then to be given that honour of becoming a life member, it's really humbling, and you know, it's something that I value a lot, and you know, it's, you know, the important thing is that it's voted on and it's awarded to you by the membership of the Referees Association, and that's what's really important. And I mean, you look at the fellas there in those photos that you've got up on the screen. You know, a lot of older guys that have been in the system for a long time and have all worked really hard for the association, both on and off the field. And you know, it's, you know, and then for people to be, you know, awarded or have that recognised and be awarded life membership is significant in my book. I remember Dave Trodden that night speaking. He said, in his view, he said it's one of the most important and highest awards that anyone can get in a sporting organisation, and you know, which was pretty significant coming from someone like Dave.
Just quickly, a quick on-field story. I've been asked to ask you about an incident at Leichhardt Oval. Wally Lewis, you sin binned him. The assessor was Kevin Roberts. I think it was Gold Coast versus Balmain. A funny story.
It was. Yeah, it was. So I had, you know, I had the opportunity of refereeing. The Gold Coast was captained by Wally Lewis, and Bilko was the advisory board guy that day, and he was standing up above the tunnel. Anyway, the touch judge was a guy by the name of Ross Pickard, and he came on to report a player by the name of Ray Herring, who was the hooker for Gold Coast. He'd given him a mouthful, and he'd been a pain in the neck the whole game. Anyway, and I said to Wally, if we're going to talk to this guy again, he's going to go to the bin. So we left it at that, and then Wally said, yeah, rightio. Anyway, it wouldn't have been 5 minutes later, Ross Pickard comes on with his flag up again. I said, who do you want? He said, Ray Herring. I went, oh, jeez, what's he done? He punched that bloke in the nose. All right, so I called him out and I called Wally out. I said, remember what I just said 5 minutes ago? I said, he's now going to the bin. When I binned him, Wally Lewis went off his dial. He swore at me and carried on a treat. I said, well, you can go and sit with him inside and talk about it. Off you go. And I looked up at that, and as I was standing with my hands with my 10 fingers in the air, Kevin Roberts, the advisory board guy, was standing. He stood to his feet and was clapping. He loved it, because I knew Bilko loved that stuff. And that's not the reason I did it, by the way, but I just knew he loved that stuff, and he really he made me laugh, actually, because I could see him out of the corner of my eye just stand up there clapping. He had his hands above his head clapping, you know, after Wally had got sin bin, and you can imagine the reception that Wally got going up there at Leichhardt Oval. It was a funny experience. It was really good. But you know, I've been really fortunate to referee some really good people. I've had, you know, a lot of highlights in my career, and you know, the State of Origin obviously being one of them. But you know, I remember, you know, being involved in development and coaching of youngsters. There's a particular referee who I won't name, but because I don't want to embarrass them, but I've been mentoring and coaching this referee for a long time, and I got to referee a grand final with this referee up at Bamaga, of all places, in an Indigenous carnival. And outside of, you know, your State of Origin appointments, to actually get on the field and referee with someone who you've been coaching and mentoring for a while, and actually do the job on the field with them is a real significant milestone. And it's one of the things I've always thought, you know, I've had a lot of experience, and if I can pass that experience on to youngsters, that's what should happen, because that's, we've got a lot of knowledge, and that's not pumping air in my own tyres. That's just a fact. I've managed to do a lot of things, and if I can pass that knowledge on to others to help them, that's a good thing. And that particular day when I refereed with this referee, and I wasn't doing the appointments for that game, by the way, so it was someone else doing it, and I just got appointed to the game with this ref, and we had the time of our lives. It was a great game, and I really enjoyed refereeing with the ref, and it was just good to see the hard work that this referee put in has come off. So yeah, I've been fortunate. I've had a really good career, and I'm continuing it with off-field stuff now, which is great.
Just quickly before we finish with our fast five, either or.
Yep.
Refereeing. It's a good time to reflect when we're off and we're all missing the game of rugby league. It's given us some time to think. What is it that you, Steve Clark, got most out of the game? You've achieved most things on the field. You've had an extensive career off the field involved in rugby league. What's the biggest thing that rugby league's given you?
To be honest with you, it's given me a sense of purpose, and it's given me a great opportunity to learn a lot of skills that I don't think I would have learned anywhere else. And do I necessarily apply them all the time? No, but the skills that I've picked up through refereeing. If anyone had told me years ago that I would be able to stand up in front of a large group and talk about whatever, I would have said, "You're kidding yourself." So confidence, the ability to be able to speak about whatever it is I need to speak about. Refereeing and rugby league has given me all that. It's given me a lot of friendships, obviously, as well. And I've met a lot of good friends, and met a lot of people that I highly respect and admire. It's just, as I said, it's a privilege to be involved in it, and it's a privilege to be part of it. And I'm very lucky. I really consider myself lucky.
All right, our fast five to finish off: barbecue or tomato sauce?
Barbecue.
Ford or Holden?
Ford.
Ford.
I just bought one, so I need to be Ford.
Did you? A Territory?
Yes. Oh. Ford Ranger.
Okay. State of Origin or Grand Final? Now, you did State of Origin. You were involved in Grand Finals as video referees. Either or here.
State of Origin.
Yeah. Beach or snow?
Beach.
And to finish off, money or free time?
Oh. I know what your last interviewee would have said.
You were right. You were correct.
Yes, money.
All right, Steve, it's been an absolute blast. I could sit here and talk to you for hours and hours. We'll have to leave it there. Look after yourself and look after the girls in these strange and very weird times. And all the best.
Likewise. And same to you, Lutz. Thanks for your time. Cheers, mate.
See you, mate.